Hi, I'm Dan Todd, and welcome to another video in Deloitte's IR35 series on the journey to April 2020. In this video, we'll look at status determination statements, including what they are and what they mean for the application of the IR35 rules. Status determination statements, or SDS, are first mentioned in the draft legislation released as part of the Finance Bill and form a key part of the new obligations introduced. The IR35 rules require an employment status assessment to be made to determine whether a worker providing their services is a deemed employee or not. An SDS is a statement confirming the status determination reached in respect of a particular worker. Clients will be required to provide the SDS directly to the worker, as well as to other parties in the supply chain. The SDS cannot just be a statement saying employed, but must also include the rationale in relation to how that outcome was reached. There is also an explicit requirement in the draft legislation for clients to take reasonable care in undertaking their status assessments. However, as yet, there is no guidance from HMRC as to what constitutes reasonable care, so clients will have to carefully consider their processes to demonstrate that they have done so. The draft legislation provides that the end client is required to pass the SDS on to both the worker and other parties in the labour supply chain. If this does not happen, then the legislation imposes penalties on the party who has failed to meet their obligation by making them liable for any pay-as-you-earn and NIC that is due. This is illustrated on the slide as follows. On the far left, we can see a simple supply chain where the end client engages a worker through their personal service company. Here, the legislation already requires that the end client both makes the employment status assessment and, if the decision is one of employment, operates pay-as-you-earn. The additional requirement just means that they also have to provide an SDS directly to the worker. In the three supply chains to the right, where a UK agency is involved, we can see that if the end client meets its obligation to give an STS to both the worker and the agency, then the obligation to operate pay-as-you-earn moves down to the next party in the chain, here the UK agency. However, if the end client fails to provide the SDS to either the worker or the agency, then it will still remain liable for any pay-as-you-earn and NIC that is due in relation to that engagement. Note that if this situation were to arise in the case of HMRC review, then this would also mean liability for interest and penalties. Having watched this video, your next steps in taking these actions forward should be: assess what form your status determination statements will take, consider how reasonable care will be taken in completing status assessments to align with HMRC expectations, and to work out how the status decisions will be communicated to all relevant parties. You should also monitor the legislation as it proceeds to being finalised in case there are any changes to the proposed rules regarding status determination statements. If you would like to understand any more about the actions to take next, or have any other questions on the content in this video, then please ask your usual Deloitte contact, or alternatively contact one of the partners listed on the Journey to April 2020 website.